Here in Germany, a new poll shows some small movements ahead of early elections set to take place in just over 2 weeks from now. The poll, commissioned by public broadcaster ARD, shows Conservatives up 1 point at 31%. The far-right AfD is polling in second place, also up 1 point at 21%. And the Social Democrats of Chancellor Olaf Scholz are at 15%. Now, his coalition partner, the Greens, are down 1 point at 14%, and the Left Party is straddling that 5% mark needed to enter Parliament. The Liberal Free Democrats and populist BSW are polling under that threshold. Let's speak to DW's political correspondent Matthew Moore for more on this story. Matthew, some thought that the outcry over last week's parliamentary vote on migration could really hurt the CDU's support, but that doesn't look to be the case at all. Friedrich Merz is probably pretty relieved today, right?
You can bet that he's pretty relieved, Claire. This was a very highly anticipated poll. There had been widespread speculation that the CDU poll numbers would suffer because of this really highly charged debate and this crisis really in Germany in the last couple of weeks. That hasn't materialised. And in fact, as you just said, the CDU have gained a point and the AfD too. And it really does just kind of firmly kind of cements their lead, if you like, in the polls, because there was big questions whether Friedrich Merz had taken a gamble that wouldn't pay off. And what's really interesting is that you see that he and the AfD gained, which seems to kind of suggest that this issue of having the migration debate in the public eye, right, is something that has helped them in the last couple of weeks. But it's turbocharged this debate in the country. People are really concerned that this will open the door to the AfD. And I've actually been out on the streets of the outskirts of Berlin and kind of gauging the mood, and I think we can hear from my report. It's been a messy couple of weeks for Friedrich Merz. On the one hand, he set the agenda with his calls for tougher migration rules. On the other, he's ignited a debate about whether he would form a coalition with the far-right AfD, despite insisting he would not. The pressure comes after he relied on the votes of the AfD to push through a motion on migration, breaking a taboo.
For me, they're Nazis, and I don't want that again. So far to the right, that's not on.
Of course, working together, no way. Merz also said, well, something that he introduces as a motion can't be wrong from the outset just because the wrong people agree.
The fact that it went to Parliament and actually people voted it, and it was not the far right that brought it into motion, it was scary.
I
actually wanted to vote CDU, but the fact that he bothered me a lot, quite honestly.
That's the risk for Friedrich Merz, that his attempt to wrestle the migration issue from the AfD could backfire and raises questions about his credibility, although market traders here support his policies.
You feel you've been left alone, and then you have the thought, close the borders, maybe it will be better.
Closing the borders again, I'm absolutely for that.
The CDU says we don't work with them, but we get support from this party for the things we want to get done. And that's why I don't really see the CDU as credible.
Others are concerned that border controls could divide Europe.
To create Europe, politicians invested a lot of their time, invested a lot of their efforts in it. And if we throw it all away, I don't know where that will lead.
Where will this all end up? For some, the mood in the country, an alarming echo of Germany's past.
For the last 1 month, I felt that this history is coming true to an extent that I am planning to get my investment so that I'm ready to go.
Planning to kind of make arrangements?
I'm making arrangements because I also have kids, and it started like that, right, from history. And this is the fear I have.
A reminder that for many, there is much more than an election at stake.
Matthew, a real sense of fear from some of those people who you spoke to out in the outskirts of Berlin. For those who haven't been following the ins and outs of this, what would you say is the main thing that has made them so afraid?
the people that I spoke to. So there was migrants, I spoke to many people, and you know how it is, not everybody gets into the final report. But the sense there was that woman there, that was a genuine sense of fear that something had changed in the last couple of weeks in Germany. I spoke to another man who'd been here for 10 years who said that he felt kind of hurt by the debate, because the debate has become, especially around migration, it's become very kind of divisive. On the other hand, you had people who'd been here for 30 years, who'd integrated, who said, you know, yeah, I've seen over time how Germany has struggled to deal with the people coming into the country and integrating. So it was a mix, but at the same time, just generally that hurt and that fear is very much there. And you saw it as well in recent weeks. We've had protests across the country, people genuinely concerned that the actions in the Bundestag of Friedrich Merz and the centre-right Christian Democrats of voting alongside the AfD, that somehow just opens the door, not necessarily in this election or following this election, but in the future to the AfD having an opportunity to govern here in Germany.
Now, your report does mention this taboo that's been broken, the question of whether the so-called firewall here in Germany has fallen or has cracks in it. What does the latest poll have to say about that?
Yeah, it's quite interesting because we here in Berlin, we were talking about this, and it's highly controversial to do what Friedrich Merz did, which was to table a motion in Parliament and say, I don't care if this passes with AfD votes. And it happened. And that's the first time it's ever happened since the AfD got into Parliament in 2017. And that is because we have this firewall, this taboo about working with the AfD, so that the other parties in Parliament say we won't do it because we consider the AfD to be too extreme. What we've seen in the latest polling is when you look at the numbers, 49% of people asked think that that's completely unacceptable, but 44% think it is okay to go ahead and table a motion even if you know it can only pass with far-right votes. So it just shows you how split the public is, and that's something I kind of find when I'm out there talking to people on the streets of Germany, that a lot of people find it hard to understand how you can have a party in Parliament like the far-right AfD who are completely shut out of the legislative making process. So that for them is hard to understand, and for me it's no surprise that comes through in the polls that we've seen.
And what about CDU leader Friedrich Merz? I mean, he's really tried to clarify his position here, saying that there won't be future collaboration with the AfD. Do you think voters trust him on that message?
Well, that was his big gamble, right? He wanted to take control of this issue of migration, which is high up on people's lists of concerns. But in doing so, he risked igniting a debate about whether or not he would potentially work with the AfD. He's been on the defensive in the last week, saying that is absolutely not the case with me. I will not work with the AfD. What we've seen in the polls now is that 44% of people think that he will stick to that pledge, but 43% think he will not. So that, again, there's question marks about his credibility there. Having said that, in the polls at the moment, he hasn't been damaged by that, and he's actually gained. The question is long-term how that impacts the party and the debate here in Germany.
Well, thank you so much. That is our political correspondent, Matthew Moore, speaking to us today.